Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Jason's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at Genesis Communications Network. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to give us a call, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up and running, 605-477-3249. A little bit of housekeeping today. On Friday, hour number one, Dr. Margaret from Spain will be with us. She's going to be giving us details on storing food and preserving food. We got a little derailed last Friday when we talked about how much does it cost to buy a home in Spain and what's it like living in Spain, refrigeration and things like that. Quite interesting broadcast, because I want to know, because we're moving. The Finelli family is moving, and I want to know all of our options. And so we talked about Spain. So on Friday, hour number one, Margaret will be with us, going back to the original topic of storing food, preserving food, details on how to do it. And hour number two is an hour I'm reserving for our detractors. Those are people who can't stand not listening to us because they learn a lot, but they hate us. So the phone lines will be opened up for them Friday, hour number two. Yeah, and we'll be taking their calls, and they can tell us why they don't like or why they feel it necessary to try to beat us up whenever they can. I will be probably alone with the detractors. So if you are one and you'd like to call, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And all you need to do is tell us who you are, your real name. That's what our instructors do. And your contact information. I may want to call you after the broadcast. So I'll need your real telephone number, and we'll verify it. And you can spend time with us on the air. And I'm going to give you the number right now. We'll even pay for the call. 866-582-9933. So if you're a detractor, please call us. Now, if you're a teacher, a public school teacher or a public school principal or a public school superintendent, it's a great day for you to call in as well. Because I'd like to know, and I know our class would like to know, what the heck has happened to education? What have you guys done? Or what have you not done? Have you just sat by and taken orders from up top and stopped teaching things that students need to know? Like how to estimate, how to measure, how to be creative writing, creative thinking, how to begin a project, how to stay with it, how to finish it? Or have you been told that now we're going to teach Microsoft Office because that's technology, and we're going to teach you how to exercise your thumbs with your smartphones? Not only that, we're going to make it make sure that you have to use your smartphones because that's how you're going to communicate with your teachers. Where'd this come from? Who destroyed education? Let's point the fingers. Let's name them. So that'll be Friday, hour number two. I'm going to give you that number one more time to make sure all of our detractors know it. That is 866-582-9933. I'm looking forward to it. I really am looking forward to it. Just me and the detractors, hour number two. And if you're a teacher, I'm not considering you a detractor. But I would like to know what the heck has happened. Have you fought with your administration saying, you know what, we really need to teach shop, and if we don't teach young children how things work mechanically, they're never going to be able to survive in this world? Have you been fighting that battle and losing? Have you had any successes? We'd love to know about it. So that's Friday, hour number 2. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning? I'm really going to have to get a landline again.
You're going to have to get a landline?
Yeah, I think I will have to.
Why is that?
Somebody was really messing with my phone right about midnight. And it just froze up, and I had to reboot it. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what it sounds like. It sounds like I'm talking to Rich Sheben. It sounds like I'm talking to Rick Miller. It sounds like I'm talking to other instructors. They're all saying the same thing. They're all saying the same thing. And when we say certain words on this broadcast, I can see the red bars, which means my words did not go out. I can see it on one of my screens in front of me. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. And other times we're getting reports that, we've got a full charge on our cell phone, everything's good. All of a sudden the battery drains down really, really fast, unusually fast, abnormally fast. It's an anomaly. It doesn't happen very often. And then after the broadcast, the phone goes back to normal charge, meaning you can charge it and it's fine. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that tells me that we're messing with the signal. We're causing the cell phones to go to a high power where they drain their batteries quickly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've had that happen.
Yeah. We're living in an. You did?
Yeah. Last week. That happened to me.
Yep.
In the last 20 minutes of the broadcast, so if people want to go back and listen to the last 20 minutes of the broadcast last week, my cell phone went from 40% to 0 in 20 minutes, which is not normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't really remember what I was saying, but it must have been good.
Well, let me share a quick story with you. You asked how I was doing, and I was tempted to say frosted, but let me just tell you what has happened. So I've been really frustrated for the last couple of days because I've been trying to bale hay, and we had a window where a couple of days of sun, and we got the hay cut, and so our son runs a tractor with a hay mower, and then Mrs. Finelli follows him and rakes the hay into windrows the next day, and then I follow her with a baler and just bale it and tie it up, and then we move it later. Well, the baler broke, and so we took, our son and I got the baler home to the farm, and we had some tools, and found out what the problem was, and a part broke. And this is a John Deere specific part. And it's not a universal thing that you can go to some tractor store that, and buy one. No. This is a stamped part. It's a heavy stamped part, and it twisted and bent, so we need to get the part. So I called John Deere. I get the operator, a local John Deere store in Lebanon, Missouri, and she transfers me to the parts department. It rings a few times, and it goes to voicemail, and it says that the fastest way to get a response is to leave a message. And I'm thinking, really? That's the fastest way? Actually, the fastest way is to talk to somebody. Actually, what I really did was I went to the internet to find out what this part was. So I could say, I need part number 123. So I went to the internet, I tried to find the parts diagrams, can't find them. Why? Because now, if you want the parts diagram, they come in fuzzy, intentionally fuzzy. So you can't really read them. You can't really read the part numbers. You can hardly make out the diagram. And what they do is they now charge you. So if you want to look at the manual for the parts, the manual will cost you $10 for 24 hours. $10 to look at it for 24 hours. Now, if you think you need it for longer than 20, yeah. No, I'm not. And that's just the beginning. Now, you can also get the manual on the internet. This is not something that's printed that you're going to get in the mail. This is just lets you look at it on the internet, parts diagrams. Now, if you want it for a month, a whole month, it's $50. If you want it for a year, it's $500. $500 for access to look at parts that you might need for your equipment. $500 a year. Now, I'd want it for a year, but it used to be free. You used to be able to go to a company, and they would have the parts diagrams, and you'd say, okay, that's the part number, and then you could click order it. They'd show you the diagram. You could order it. You could pay for it, with your credit card, and they'd ship it to you. Now, you've got to pay to figure out what the part is that you want before you can buy it. That's where we are today. So let me get back to the rest of the story. So I couldn't do that. I refused to spend $10 to try to figure out what the part is. Okay. So I called John Deere. I talked to the young gal at the control tower, and she says she'll transfer me to parts. It rings a few times, and then I get a message for fastest service. I'll leave a message in your number. Okay. So I left a message, and I decided to call back, get the gal at the control tower, and she transfers me to parts, and I get the same message. I did that 3 times. My son did it once. That was yesterday. We didn't get a call back yesterday. And I didn't think we would. So this is Heritage Tractor. They bought up all the John Deere dealerships in like a 200-mile radius. I think there are like 8 or 9 of them that they bought. These were independent John Deere ownership dealers. But they bought them all. Now they're under the Heritage label. So now they can price fix. So, if you live within this 200-mile radius, the prices are all going to be the same. And they are. So I called 2 others and left messages. Why? I talked to the gals at the control tower, and, yep, we'll transfer you to parts. Yep, thank you for your call. And parts department says, for fastest service, please leave your message. Nobody called back. So this morning before the broadcast, I was really frosted. I'm thinking, the hay's down. I've got to get this part ordered. It'll take probably a day or 2 to get the part anyway. I got to get the darn thing ordered anyway. Well, I get the same gal. She transfers me for faster service, leave a message. So I call her back, and she says, okay, I will transfer you. They're done. They're not on the phone right now. I can see them. Transfers me. Rings a couple times, goes to voicemail again. I call her back and I said, I'll tell you what, you're a real nice person. You're not the problem. They are. Your parts guys aren't answering the phone. I've got 3 John Deere tractors. I've got a John Deere baler. I'm trying to figure out why I have John Deere anything. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If I can't get to talk to the parts department, I'm going to call your CEO at Heritage, and I'm going to say, this is what's wrong with Heritage. Because before Heritage bought all these dealerships, I could actually talk to somebody. But now I can't. And that's my first call. I'm going to make 2 calls. The second call is to John Deere corporate headquarters and tell them what it's like dealing with you guys. Those are the 2 calls I'm going to make. Left her my number. I get a call right back.
I'll bet you did.
They call me right back.
Yeah.
But we still can't. But the guy on the end of the phone, I explained what the part I needed was. I said I have a John Deere model 547 baler. I need the chain guide for it. I just hit in the tractor. It's on the left-hand side. It's on this 4-inch round tube at the top of the baler. And it's a half round with 2 tabs on it. It's 2 inches wide, 3/16 steel. That's what I need. You can't find anything that fits that shape. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. And class, there's a reason why I'm telling you this story. We bring to you real situations here at USA Prepares, things that may happen to you, things that you need to be prepared to deal with. And I tell you the way I deal with them. Maybe I'm a little aggressive. When my back is against the wall, I come out swinging. I try to be nice. But here I am. I mean, the livelihood of our farm is at stake. And I can't get anybody to answer the phone. And I want to apologize. I made a mistake. I thought there were maybe 9 of these Heritage dealership locations in Missouri. There's 22. They bought up just about everything. 22 John Deere dealer stores in Missouri. 22. So I'm thinking now, the closest one that I guess I should say it's greater than a 100-mile radius. Maybe it's a 150-mile radius. Maybe it's almost 200-mile radius that they've sewn up. And it used to be that John Deere prided itself on their parts distribution system. So if you broke something, you could get it the next day with John Deere. And I've only bought one piece of John Deere equipment that was new, and that was this particular baler. And the reason I bought it was I had a friend who was a dealer in Virginia, and he ordered 3 of them by mistake. That normally balers are 4 feet wide and 5 feet tall, meaning the bales come out 4 feet wide, 5 feet high in this particular 1,000-pound size. Well, he ordered by mistake 5 feet wide and 4 feet tall. And so instead of a $20,000 baler, it was $11,000. And he had 3 of them, and he couldn't wait to get rid of them. He said, look, just take one of those, $11,000, and it's yours. So I did. But it's an oddball size. But for me, I don't care, because I use most of the hay here on our farm. And the reason that 4-foot wide bales are more popular and more desirable is if you put them on a trailer, you put them side by side, and it's only 8 feet, and you get down the road with them. With ours, it'd be 5 plus 5, which is 10 feet wide. So that's why he had trouble getting rid of it, and I was delighted to get it. But now we can't even get anybody on the phone to order the parts. So the old model, where John Deere had the best parts distribution in the country and the best parts availability, I don't see that anymore. It used to be they were the best, and the independent dealers that would sell New Holland and Ford and Case and International, those independent guys didn't have the parts dealership network that John Deere did. Now I'd rather go to the independent guys because they're better. They actually care about their customers. So what happened? I believe that all these dealerships were bought up, and they said, whoa, you know how much money we have that we owe, the debt that we have? We got to cut costs. So let's start firing people. And we don't need as many people. We can do it without. And now we can't get anybody on the phone. That's my take on it. So, Guineith, I wanted to share that with you. And this is a pretty serious problem, because I don't think it's just them at Heritage Tractor. I think this is just a microcosm of what is happening. Fewer and fewer and fewer corporations are running the show, and there's no place to go. There's no, where am I going to get a John Deere specific part other than John Deere? And I'm looking at how long is it going to take me to make this part, and that's next. That's next. If I can't get satisfaction, I'm going to make the part. But it's going to take me a day to do it.
Yeah, that might be your only option. If you have fitting and turning gear,
we do.
To make it yourself, or to get a heavy industrial machinist to make the part for you, because that was actually my dad's job when he was alive and when he was working. He's passed on some years ago now, but he was a heavy diesel mechanic, and he would get road train drivers and owners coming to him with their heavy machinery. This is like 18-wheelers, logging trucks and such like, because the area that I grew up in, there was a lot of logging industry there. And he would custom make parts for them because of this very reason. They couldn't get any joy out of the, Mack trucks or whoever, Yeah. Even despite the fact that there was a...
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. So, class, it's really simple. Preparedness is having what you need before you need it. Now, that applies to spare parts, tools, and knowledge. Okay? That's what being prepared really is about, in a nutshell. Having what you need before you need it. So the simplest example is opening the refrigerator and saying, geez, there's nothing to eat. That's the simplest example of not being prepared. Okay? Now, there are things that can happen, financial considerations that can happen that would make it difficult. But generally speaking, Preparedness is having what you need before you need it. So Guineith has got a great class for you right now to talk about preparing and without being dependent on the system, because the system is failing us. The system is lousy. It's absolutely awful. I don't even know in the mornings whether I'm going to be able to broadcast or not, because the internet provided by CenturyLink is so flaky. I'm not kidding. I have to reset the router during the broadcast. I don't know if the phone lines are working. There's nobody to call. Their tech support is in the Philippines. You know, if you were to lose your temper and try to drive to talk to somebody, you don't even know where they are. And you don't even use their real names. That's where we are today. And that's one of the reasons why I think people are losing it. Because they can't talk to anybody. They've adopted convenience. Pay by phone. Really? Pay by your cell phone. All these applications that make life really complex, where you used to be able to go to a store and talk to somebody and get it done right then and there. Not anymore. We've got the internet between you and what you need to do. It's awful. Guineith, you've got a great class for us.
Yeah. Basically, we've got to start setting up our own system, because I was in Bendigo today. This is going to lead into what I was saying. Bendigo for me in Victoria is the nearest really big town. I don't even want to deal with Wedderburn, which is the town just up the road, anymore, because that town has been taken over by a bunch of devil-worshipping scum who live in the municipality, okay? And they work for the municipality, and they shut down all businesses within the municipality unless that they can control it. And I'm fed up with them, and I won't deal with any businesses, hardly. I will sometimes go and get a cup of coffee at the coffee shop, you know. The people at the coffee shop are still quite nice. And there's various other small businesses. But, yeah, it's like that town with the tyre shop and the guy with the speed camera that you talk about. Well, this is a similar situation. But, you know, even Bendigo is getting taken over. This is a town of 120,000 people, a large rural regional centre, okay, is getting taken over by people with rainbow-coloured hair, people who go around the town, young men go around the town, they walk in groups like gangs, they walk aggressively, they speak loudly, and, you know, I said, oh, well, you know, those look, I said to my son when we were walking in town today, I said, oh, those look like the kids that came out of the child protection system, and they've just grown up a bit, you know. There was a group of kids, you know, probably about, I don't know, 3 to 5 years ago, and we would go to, you know, the shopping mall to go to the supermarket, and then afterwards we would go to, I would sometimes take him to Burger King, our equivalent of Burger King, you know, for a special treat. And these kids would be hanging around outside the Burger King accosting people who went in, especially women with small children. And these looked like the same kids, except they were 3 or 5 years older. So instead of being like 15 and 16 and whatever, now they are, you know, 18 and 20 and 21. But they honestly look like a bunch of families department rats. These people, they come out of the child welfare system and they are messed up in their heads, Vincent. They are not right in their heads. They're often drug addicted. And you know what my son said to me? He said, oh, no, Mum, those aren't those boys. They go to the local technical college. And I said, what? And he said, yes, it's true. They go to the technical college. I've seen them there. I've seen them in classes there, you know, and sometimes you have to go to technical college for various things. You know, we want to get him enrolled there, but we've got another set of problems is finding him accommodation that is affordable so that he can go to technical college in Bendigo. So, and that's, you know, something that's hindering me from getting him a trades qualification. But these kids were loudmouthed, they were aggressive in their attitude, and it was just sort of like, you know, I'm gobsmacked. Is this the kids that are learning the trades? Is this the kids that are learning how to do, you know, learning how to be auto mechanics, learning how to be chefs, learning how to be whatever at the technical college? Because if it is, we've really got big problems. Because these kids had no manners. And they were wandering around town. And granted, it was early in the morning, so probably classes hadn't started yet. But, you know, Vincent, we've got to start setting up our own system. And it's hard because the people that have the system at the moment, they do have a monopoly on the technology. So we've got to make our own workaround, working from a backwards position. And I think I wrote in the email to you earlier, sometimes it may just come down to learning how to do things with a wheelbarrow and a spade. You know, if you've got a farm, because you might have a set of trenches to put in, and, you know, you might think, oh, well, I can't afford a trenching machine, so I can't put trenches in. Yes, you can. If you have a spade and if you have a wheelbarrow, you can put trenches in. It's just going to take you longer. Does that make sense, Vincent?
It absolutely does. And I've got a quick comment about what you were talking about, the multicultural hair. I taught, in class, you've probably heard something like this over the years. I taught a college class, and you mentioned community college, and I even taught community college students as well. But the particular class I'm talking about was in the high school. And my students in my class were manufacturing computers, as you may remember. I had each student and their parents sign a contract with me, an agreement as to what they would do in order for me to teach them. I wouldn't just teach anybody. They had to agree to my terms and conditions. And in this contract, it said that there will be no hair that is not a natural color. So if you're a brunette and you want to be blonde, that's fine. But no pink, green, yellow, blue, you know, none of that stuff. And you'd have to wear a belt that matched your shoes. And I bought each student, I paid, Mrs. Finelli and I paid for shirts, embroidered shirts with the class logo on them. And the students had to be on time. If they were 1 second late, they were locked out of my class. And they would be picked up by the assistant principal for being tardy or not in class or wandering around the halls. But I said, no hair color that is not natural. And the reason was we had real customers buying printers, networks, software, computers that we manufactured. And I would not allow my students to look like those careless, reckless people that you've been describing with the multicultural hair. And if I had a car and it needed to be serviced and I brought it to the service facility, whether it be a dealership or an independent, and some odd-looking thing came out with pink hair, I'd say, you got to be kidding me. You really expect me to trust you with my vehicle? You've lost your mind. And I'd leave after I told the owner of that, of the establishment that. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. We all need to do that. So if you go to the Chinese factory outlet and you see one of these things with pink or blue or green hair, call the store manager and say, I just want you to see something. Look at that. You really expect me to trust buying something from that And then you can say, here's a quote from a guy that's on the radio. Quote, have you lost your mind? End quote. Because that's become my favorite phrase. Have you lost your mind? Well, my other favorite one is, what's the matter with you? That's where we are today. And I will not participate. I absolutely refuse to participate. I'm voting with my feet and I'm voting with my wallet. And you can do the same thing. Speak up. Janet Rito said it. If you see something, say something. It annoys me. It absolutely annoys me. Do you think I'm going to trust something with pink hair at the John Deere dealership? I haven't seen one yet. But if I go in there, I'm going to leave after I talk to the owner and say, have you lost your mind? Look at that thing.
Yeah, this is it, you know. And like I say, I don't think that there were lots of, young people with multicolored hair in Bendigo, but these particular ones didn't have multicolored hair. They just looked like juvenile justice graduates. That's what they looked like. They looked like graduates from the juvenile justice system. And that's not a good look either. To be perfectly honest, if I'm looking to get my car repaired, you know, if the guy repairing my car is a graduate of the juvenile justice system, I don't want him to look like he's a graduate of the juvenile justice system. Maybe he is a graduate from the juvenile justice system and he's managed to turn his life around and got a trade, you know. And, you know, I say good for him if that happens, because he doesn't then go on to the adult justice system, which is the career path for most kids who come out of the juvenile justice system. These kids look like criminals. They really did. They looked like little hood rats. And I put my head up, I put my chest out, I put a bit more of an angry look on my face and a bit more of a clip in my gait, and I kept a straight line and I walked straight past them. Because I remembered them.
Yep. All right, we'll be right back. So, class, I opened the broadcast, mentioned that I was trying to get some parts from John Deere, started yesterday. I just want to give you an update. It's over 2 hours that we've been working on this. Our son has been working on it while I'm on the air. He's been working on it with John Deere. Now, it's 2 hours later. We still don't have resolution. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? Now the guys are busy behind the counter. They're too busy to finish the transaction with us. What a mess. Guineith, the way around this is to do without being tied to the supply chain. Unfortunately, a lot of us are addicted to it, as we are with equipment. So let's do it without these turkeys. Let's do it without machines. But it's hard. It's a lot harder. But yet,
it is.
You won't be dependent. But you won't be as dependent as we are. We've got 1 million parts here. Probably 1 million. I'm not exaggerating. 1 million different parts. And if any one of them breaks, we're in trouble. So how do we do it without being dependent on these turkeys?
Well, I think that the best you can do is to develop a relationship with your nearest heavy industrial engineer. And, anytime anything breaks, get him to custom make you a part. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be more expensive. Mm-hmm. But, it will keep that level of engineering in work, because that is another area. That's a whole other area all on its own. Like I say, I'm familiar with that area because it was my dad's trade, was a heavy industrial machine engineer. And he did his apprenticeship on steam locomotives. And when he finished his apprenticeship, he went to work for an international airline in Australia. So he went from working on steam locomotives one week to jet engines the next week. That was quite interesting. But, that's the sort of flexibility of training that heavy industrial machinists are trained in, so they can fix anything. And that might be your only option.
We're building this house, the farmhouse. We built it. It's a French farmhouse design, and it has heavy beams that go from the tops of the walls across the room, vertically, diagonally. It's got lots of angles, and I needed to make some joining plates. And so we traced out these angles, and we had them cut out of quarter-inch steel plate. And we could bolt all these beams together where they all joined in the middle. And there was a shop that you could do that. You could say, okay, here's the pattern, here's the template. Can you make, 8 of these? And can you make 6 of these other style? And can you make 6 of this third style? And how much will it cost, and when can we pick them up? And they'd say, well, it'll cost X, and you can pick them up in 3 days. It used to be like that, right here in Missouri. They went out of business. There's one fabrication shop. Now, they had a whole bunch of people working there. They had a lot of machinery. They probably had 10 people working there, making exactly what you said, but they're gone now. They've been gone for about 10 years. There's one guy left. He's 20 miles away. He's about 85 years old. One guy. And when he goes, that's it. There's no apprentices. There's no journeymen. There's no high school students, learning with an internship. It's very sad. It's really sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
if anyone out there wants a trade where they are going to have work, and you are, I wanted to be a heavy industrial machinist, but my dad wouldn't arrange me an apprenticeship because I was female, to be perfectly blunt. And I'm really sad that he didn't. But you need to be, I'm fairly tall and I'm fairly strong. And I've got large hands and that sort of thing. But, if you are somebody who is quite strong, quite tall, then that is a career possibility for you. If you're wanting a trade, go and seek out one of these old men and just offer to work for them. And just say, listen, you're getting old, I want to know what you know. And I can just about guarantee that you will have a job, and there may not be a formal apprenticeship structure anymore for this sort of machining work. But if you can learn this sort of work, you will never, ever be out of work.
Imagine this, class. Imagine this. Imagine paying to go to the community college and learn some skills. Or imagine going to one of these shops that I mentioned with this 85-year-old engineer and saying, I'll tell you what, how about if I help you for free? No charge. I would just love to learn. So now you can get that college course from someone even better than the college instructor, not pay for it, and everybody wins. You win and he wins. Guineith and I will be right back. We're going to talk about wheelbarrows, shovels, and doing it the hard way. But yes, you can do it. Cocked, locked, hour number 2. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Quick update. Just got the word from John Deere. They're going to be ordering those parts for us. Couldn't get it ordered yesterday because I didn't answer the phone. Got it done 2 hours later today. Took 2 hours on the phone to get this done. And we're going to have the parts late Friday, probably in time for the rain. So that's what it's like. Class, we're going to teach you now the hard way. The hard way to get away from the supply chain with a spade, a wheelbarrow, and some, what's that called, sweat equity? Yeah,
elbow grease. Elbow grease. I don't know if they even use that term in America, but it means plain old-fashioned hard work.
Yeah.
That's what it means. And really, there's no way around it. it may well be for you, Vincent, that you have no other option than to just have 20 or 30 cows, enough to keep yourself and your family in meat. And, you know, have it at a level where you can get size. And, you know, I'm talking about in a collapse situation, okay, and go out and cut some fields of hay by hand, turn it by hand, and just keep 10 or 20 or 30 cows just to keep your family in meat, and grow vegetables to eat. Mm-hmm. And, you know, have one or two of these or three of these cattle and train them to be milkers, and train others of them to be, you know, bullocks, to do the heavy farm, the bit of heavy farm work that you need to do. Mm-hmm. This is where I can see our society going. It's not forwards, onwards, and upwards. It's going to be where things are going to go back to the way that they were 200 and 300 years ago. And how things were 200 and 300 years ago is that even if you had 300 acres, you kept enough land. You know, you people generally had, like my grandmother had. You know, she had 7 children, but she was one of over 20 children. And my grandmother's grandfather owned a vast estate in England, and that estate's still there, and they were old school farmers. But the reason why they had 20 children was, for one thing, there was a high mortality rate, and for the other thing, they needed labourers for the farm, and there's only one place they'd get those labourers, and that was giving birth to them, you know. And I'm aware that, you know, that's not an option for you. It's not an option for me either, because my husband died and I've only got 2 sons, and one of them's moved out, and now I've just got 1 son, you know, at home with me. And probably within a year or 2, I think he'll probably move out as well, because, but you've got to keep building your land somehow. You've got to keep managing it somehow. And it's going to go back to either learning the skills that you need yourself to be able to maintain your equipment and to make the parts, or to go to a more simple way of managing your land and finding out how people ran cattle farms 300 years ago, and to do it in the same way that they did it, because 300 years ago they didn't have this modern technology and John Deere tractors, you know. And yes, it was hard work, and you know, people had fewer livestock. And my grandmother, the lady that I was mentioning earlier, her husband was a dairy farmer, and he might have had 20 or 30 cows in his dairy herd, which is, you know, it always doesn't even count as a dairy herd these days. But he had to milk them by hand every morning, and that was a monumental task. Every single morning and every single night, he had to milk these cows by hand. And, you know, they didn't have nice, flash, cushy country to graze them on. They had eucalyptus forest, and the ground below eucalyptus forest is generally sucked dry by the gum tree. The eucalyptus trees, they put their roots out and they suck any nutrition out of the soil quicker than you could blink your eyes. They are just really, really hungry. And, you know, this was, they somehow survived. They lived there doing that for 14 years. But eventually it got too much for them, and they walked off their land and they went into town. And my grandfather he was actually an engineer as well, and he got a job on the railway signals, being a railway signal man. But, you know, this is it. People, you know, it may be for a lot of people that it, you know, that they can't do it, and that they either have to just wind back their operation to a level that is manageable for them, where they can just look after themselves, look after their family, and, you know, to whatever with the rest of the world, to H with the rest of the world. And I think that for a lot of people that's going to be the way that it is, that they're going to focus on feeding their own families, and just the rest of the world, whatever. It's your own stinking fault. You've built the rest of the world, but my little patch of ground is where I'm king, and I get to run the show, and I'm going to do so for the sake of my own family. And, you know, I think that that's the way that it's going to go for a lot of us. And with me personally, it literally is a spade and a wheelbarrow going out on the paddocks and, you know, collecting manure from the paddock, where this place has had livestock on it for quite, you know, many, many years, mostly horses. But collecting wheelbarrows full of horse manure, bringing them to the garden, sitting there on the ground or on a chair, and breaking up by hand wheelbarrows full of horse manure, and filling trenches with horse manure, and then planting vegetables in them. And is that a lot of work? Yeah. But the reward is that my garden is looking absolutely beautiful. And piece by piece, gradually, I'm beginning to build up a vegetable garden that will feed us, and maybe even in the future, as I expand it, I will be able to turn it into a market garden and begin growing and selling vegetables for other people. You know? But this is it. And it's hard work. And each one of these beds is about 1 foot wide and about 8 feet long. And in a 1 foot wide, 8 foot long bed, which is it has one wheelbarrow full of wood chips in the bottom, and it has 2 wheelbarrow fulls of horse manure crushed up by hand, put into that trench, and then planted. And in each one of those trenches, I can plant 50 onions, and I can plant 8 bush marrow plants, courgette plants, or tomato plants, or some other vegetable in between the rows of onions. And, you know, it's hard work, it's sweat equity, but in a few months' time, my family and I will be able to eat, and we will be eating really, really well, because we've got garlic, we've got courgettes, we've got potatoes, we've got onions, and we've got pumpkins, and, you know, we've got all the food that we're going to need. And we've got rabbits, and the rabbits will provide some meat as well. And we've got a chicken pen, and the chickens will provide eggs, and they will provide some nutrition as well. You know, when the layer hens get old, then, you know, they can end up being made into chicken soup or whatever as well. And we'll get some roosters, and, you know, we have a hen that has a tendency to go broody, and we can put eggs under her. This is how people used to do it. This is how people used to do it back in the day. This is old-style mixed farming, and people have gotten away from that. And because of that, you've got farms that are thousands and thousands of acres in magnitude in many cases, but they're in debt and they can never ever make a profit. Why not? Because the machinery is too expensive. The machinery is always breaking. They're always having repair bills. They need to pour tons of literally tons of Roundup onto the soil, or otherwise the place gets overtaken with weeds. Now, the weeds are a problem, okay, but they are a symptom more than they are a problem, because if you get deep-rooted weeds, like, I don't know, things like mallows and radish, okay, then those deep-rooted weeds indicate that your soil is lacking nutrition. The soil is actually trying to fix itself. And if you let the place go, if you own 5,000 acres of land and you are so much in debt that you're just about feeling that you're going to lose the place if you have one bad season, or even if you have a good season, you need to write a letter to the bank and you need to say, listen, this debt was fraudulently created in the first place, which a lot of it actually was, okay? And you need to say, you need to produce the note. You need to produce the mortgage note on this farm, okay, because I believe that this debt is fraudulent and I need to check the note. You need to produce the mortgage note. And if the bank can't produce the mortgage note, there is no mortgage on your place, okay? Because without that piece of paper security, the bank has nothing. And they are relying on all of us being too ignorant to check now and again that they still have their note, that they still have their securitized piece of paper, okay? And you need to just sit back and begin doing stuff at a doable level, okay? Which may mean going and digging in the garden and making a market garden patch. You might have 5,000 acres, but find that you can only manage by hand 1, 3, or 5 acres of it. That's okay. Let the other,
We'll be right back. Guineith, I've been listening intently to everything you've been saying, and I want to share a point with our class. So, a number of us, as instructors, go to thrift stores because we're frugal. And I've been to thrift stores where I've purchased, and I'm talking within the last 6 months, I've purchased shovels, hand saws, rakes, hose, cultivator hose for $2 to $5 a piece. Now I'm talking about really good quality ones. Ones that might be 20, 30 years old that have been stored in a garage, or where they're not rusty. Really good quality. Because I believe what's happened is young people inherited these from their parents when they passed away. And who needs shovels anymore? Who needs hose and rakes? We don't do that stuff anymore. If you can't do it with a cell phone, there's no need to have the equipment, right? That's where we are. And I was also thinking, as Guineith was talking about hard work, I was thinking, I can imagine these thoughts never crossing Guineith's mind. For example, and I'd love to hear a response when I'm done with these 3 items. I believe that Guineith never thought of buying a treadmill or a stationary bicycle that you put in your house or a stationary rowing machine. Guineith, have you ever thought of buying one of those?
No. What a stupid idea. I have bought bicycles, and I've got a tricycle out there, an adult tricycle, and it has a battery, and it has an electric motor, and but the batteries die after about a year. So now I have an electric tricycle without an electric motor, but it's still good for carting stuff. So sometimes on the country roads around here, I take my electric tricycle that doesn't have an electric motor anymore because it doesn't have a battery. I just take the battery out and I use the adult tricycle, and I go and get stuff from the countryside, and I bring it home, and I use it on my garden. or I, might go out foraging for carcasses for my dogs, or I might notice when I'm out and about driving with in a friend's car, or, as a passenger in a friend's car, that there's some tyres by the side of the road. I don't see tyres, I see tree guards. So it might be 5 or 10 kilometres from home, but I will remember where those tyres were, and I will get my little tricycle out, literally my red tricycle, and I will go up the road, and I will maybe go 5 or 10 kilometres with this adult tricycle, and I will put those tyres in the back, and I will take them home, because car tyres are just too useful to be left on the side of the road, in my humble opinion. To other people, they might be junk, but to me, they're tree guards, and there's any number of things you can use an old tyre for. You
can plant tomatoes in them.
But rowing machines? What's the point? There's enough work to be done out there. You don't need to have something to make artificial work so that your muscles feel good, because your muscles will feel really good after having a 5 kilometre or 10 kilometre, sometimes they've even ranged up to 30 kilometres with this little adult tricycle that I have, and in a single day. And people go, how do you do that? I say, it's simple. You get on the seat and you turn the pedal. And it goes. Yep. And when it gets too hard, then you get off and you walk and you push it up the hills, But this is it. People have forgotten what hard work is like, And when I have a horse, I go horse riding, and the horse helps. And if I find a carcass, then the carcass will go on over the back of the horse on a saddle with a sack protecting the horse's back from the carcass, so. And he gets washed as soon as he gets home and all that, of course. But, the horse helps as well. Yeah. So a horse is a useful tool. And
we'll be right back. Yeah, we'll be right back. By the way, shovels used to be $10. Now a good shovel's like $50. Look for them used. We'll be right back. Just a short side trip here. The meaning of words has changed in my life. I can't believe it. You used to be able to say the word gay and it meant happy. Now it means homosexual. When I was at the university, I was a marshal, and I had a Korean partner, and he and I would be assigned different districts to patrol at the university, and I would refer to him as my partner. Now the word partner seems to mean that a person is a homo and he lives with a homo. So they're partners. And the reason I'm telling you this, Guineith, is because we use the word elbow grease. Now, elbow grease has even changed meanings. If you go to a search engine and you type elbow grease, 2 words, which is what I did, it's not what we meant. I'm going to read the definition. Okay? This is available at the Chinese factory outlet, Walmart. This is what their website says about the product they sell called elbow grease. Quote, elbow grease, original is a safe, long-lasting premium lubricant specifically designed to enhance your sensual experience.
Oh,
I'm not going to read the rest of it where you... Yeah, I'm not going to read the rest of it where you apply it. But I can guarantee you it's not on your elbows. Yeah?
It's not for your elbows. Yeah. We mean...
No.
That's an old phrase. That's an old saying. It means hard work. It means moving your elbows. That. Yeah. It's not...
Yeah,
it's
lifting,
not
carrying... Yeah, it's lifting, carrying, sawing, hauling, really difficult effort.
Yeah.
And now for only $32.99 plus $4.95 delivery. You can have it next week. The 15-ounce size, right from Walmart. Unbelievable. What an outrage. What an outrage how things have changed meanings. And who has done this? Corporations are involved. But what you're talking about, Guineith, is literally going backward in time. And class, Captain John Reagan was on with us yesterday. And that's what he's talking about. That's what Joey's talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's what Rick's talking about. Guineith, we're all talking about going back in time, meaning the hard way. And those who are not going to consider learning how it was, how it used to be, are not going to survive, in my opinion. You know, where does fertilizer come from? Well, you get it at Walmart. You buy it in a bag, right? Everybody knows that. Really? Well, what if you can't get to Walmart? And why is it that towns are like, 10 miles apart? Why is that? Because that's how far you could ride on a horse in a day. That's why. That's why.
Yeah. In England, okay, generally the towns are 5 miles apart because most people didn't have horses and most people walked. And 5 miles is about the limit. 5 miles there and 5 miles back is 10 miles. That's about the limit that you can comfortably walk in a day and do your business. Okay? But in parts of the world, in parts of the New World, Australia and America, where people moved and they found that they were released from that system of serfdom that they had in England and places like that, that they could afford, that they began to prosper and they could afford a horse, then the towns began to be built probably about 20 miles apart, 10 to 20 miles apart, because that's how far you can ride a horse comfortably and do your business and then ride home in a day. Okay, so, you know, that's just it. And so that's the same way around here. Most of the towns are built around about 20 miles apart. Yeah, that's the truth of it. If you say it's not possible, I'll say to do work on this level and to actually run a farm on this level, you need to look out of your own backyard and you need to look across at Asia, because there are large parts of Asia where that's still how the families run their family farms. And most of the family farms in Asia are quite small. They are from 5 to 20 acres in size. In fact, 20 acres would be a huge farm by Asian standards, but they farm it so intensively that they don't need any larger. And why do they have the acreages between 10 and 20 acres to a family? Because that's a manageable size for a single family to produce enough for them to eat and a bit more to sell. That's just how it is, you know. And, you know, but it's something where we have to go back to doing things in this way, in my humble opinion, Vincent. What do you think?
Well, I absolutely agree with you. And I'd like to connect a dot, but first let me just say that I see the call screen is lit up. I cannot take the call, but as soon as our engineer gets to you, please stay with us, and we will get to you and put you on the air. So when I moved to Virginia, I noticed something that I thought was quite interesting, quite different, quite odd, actually. People would just show up at our farm. They wouldn't call. They would just show up. They just come down this long driveway and, maybe a quarter of a mile and come in through the gate and just show up. I thought, why don't they call first? You know, we had a landline. Why don't they just pick up the phone and call us and say, hey, would it be okay if we came over? No, they just show up. And I couldn't figure it out. And then I looked at the newspaper, and it took me a while to figure this out. Looked at the newspaper, and I would see that Mabel Jones went had the family over for lunch on Saturday. There'd be an article in a newspaper, the once-a-week newspaper, that there was the county newspaper in this very rural, poor area in Virginia. And you would read about how people would visit each other in the newspaper. And I'm thinking, who cares? Why? Why is this in a newspaper? How is this news? Well, what I didn't realize was that the road from this village where we moved to 500 people, which was about 70 miles away from Virginia, the road was a dirt road until the 1950s. It's hard to believe, right, in America, that this road was a dirt road. And electricity didn't get to this part of Virginia until around the 1940s, 1950s, and maybe 1950s. And people didn't have phones. So they weren't raised picking up the phone and calling to say, hey, would it be okay if I came over? And when they did show up, they didn't plan on leaving. It was not a kind of a thing where they would show up and say, hey, just want to see if you're okay, see you, bye. No, they would spend a couple hours because they made the trip, from...
And they'd have a meal. And if you didn't feed them, that was a big faux pas.
Right.
That was a sin, to not feed visitors.
Right. Unannounced, uninvited visitors. Now, I'm not saying they weren't welcome. I'm just saying we had no idea they were coming. And to me, growing up in a little more populated area, not the city, but in the more populated area, we picked up the phone because that was the polite thing to do. But in rural Virginia, they didn't have phones. So they didn't call. And this was perfectly acceptable, normal routine. Just show up. And that's the way it's probably going to be in the future. When all this goes down, when that grid goes down, nobody's calling anybody. Nobody. And people are just going to show up. Now, some of them are going to be your friends, and some of them are going to want what you've got. And what are you going to do about it? So here's my advice and your homework assignment, and it's mandatory. The Walking Dead. I would like you to watch at least one season of The Walking Dead, because you're going to see what it's really going to be like. Now, they've got these weird, mutated dead people, and you'll think Finelli's lost his mind by assigning this. But when you look at these Walking Dead, and you realize that they're going to be like your neighbors, they're going to be invading your place, they're going to show up, they're going to want what you've got, and if you're not willing to give it to them, they're going to kill you. It's as simple as that. So replace these zombies, these man-eating zombies in the Walking Dead series with politicians, friends, neighbors, even some of your family will turn against you. And you'll get a chance to be terrified when you actually realize that this could happen, and it probably will happen much like this, except they won't be the Walking Dead. They'll just be out to get you and get what you have. And I really can see it coming. Guineith, when the grid goes down, can you see roving bands of things coming over to your place and other places saying, y'all got anything to eat? Because we're hungry. And we want what, this is a pretty nice farm. I think we're going to take it. As a matter of fact, we are going to take it. And then the shooting starts. Can you see that happening?
Absolutely. And I'm preparing for such an eventuality. But the only thing that I think would be something of a saving grace for us is that we do live so far from town. We live more than a comfortable walking distance from town, from any town. And there's a lot of other farms that they're going to try to get before they get ours. And the people who have these other farms have firearms. I don't have firearms, but I have other rather deadly projectile firing devices. Well, and people will find that bulletproof vests won't be particularly effective against my particular projectile firing devices.
And here's what happens. You'll see this on The Walking Dead. It's available on Netflix, and you can buy it on DVD as well. I think our son paid $6 for a series of The Walking Dead on DVD, used. And I don't suggest you buy hardly anything new. You know, food you might want to buy new, but other than that, buy most things used. And what happened is they ran out of ammunition. Ammunition was a big deal, a real big deal.
Yeah, that's how it is here. Unless you've got a firearms license, you can't get ammunition. And but the thing is, I am talking about archery type weapons, of course. I can make my ammunition from the branches that grow here.
Well, one of the guys
cultivating certain trees that will be ideal archery ammunition type trees.
Yeah. One of the guys in The Walking Dead has got a crossbow. And he'd shoot these zombies in the head, kill them. And, you know, he didn't say it, but it was, give me that arrow back, you know, after he killed him. We'll be right back. Okay, just a quick housekeeping update. Friday, hour number 2. I'd like to hear from you, not only our detractors, but I'd like to hear, what do you like about USA Prepares? What do you not like about USA Prepares? How can we do a better job? And in between the telephone calls, I don't even know if we'll get any, but I will be talking about tips on how I do things, things that are from the book I'm writing. So I've got my notes in front of me, and I'll be talking about that on Friday, hour number 2. Brian in Wisconsin, thank you so much for calling us and being patient.
Yes, hello.
Hey.
Yeah, I just called in. I heard you talking about the 85-year-old fabricator, and I'm not 85, but I did have experience doing that. For about 20 years, I was self-employed as a small weld shop, did custom fabrication repair work of agricultural equipment, and that part you're talking about with your baler, I can almost picture it. I'm guessing it probably takes me like 3 hours to sort of make something like that for you, so too bad we don't live closer, but... So,
yeah,
but,
yeah. Well, I figure it's a 2-hour job, but for me it'll take me all day, because you know, I've got to heat the metal, bend the metal, drill it out, and so forth. And I'm really I'm very deliberate in what I do, and it's got to be perfect, or I'm not happy with it. So I don't bang things out. Yeah, but you're right. You're right.
Again, the problem is, with getting training from somebody like that, for somebody that's younger, the problem is there's no money in it now because the small farmers are all but gone. That's what happened. I'm driving truck now because I'm in dairy country up here, and we went from 30, 40, 50 cow dairies to 1,000, 4,000, 8,000 cow dairies. Now there's just a few farms around, and they're very centralized. They do everything themselves. So that's why I had to find something else to do. So if I run into somebody that's looking to get into a business, I tell them, get into something that deals with recreation, because people have no problem spending money on, boats, snowmobiles, whatever. They have no problem. But when you give them a bill, for fixing their equipment, they don't want to see that. So that's kind of the way it's going right now. It's a shame, but.
Brian, you're absolutely right. And so if Fluffy needs to go to the vet, and Fluffy needs to have the tooth extracted, and it's a $250 bill with sedation and then hospitalization, so we're looking at $350 for Fluffy, no problem. But if you've got a horse that's down, or a cow that needs to have a calf pulled, and there's a $200 bill, the farmer will just, what? You got to be kidding. And we're talking about the difference between an office visit and a farm visit. So the vet has to drive 45 minutes each way, have his truck full of all the supplies, and it's absolutely hard, disgusting, dirty, slimy work to pull a calf. But yet Fluffy, there's money for Fluffy. You are right on the money. Brian, I'm impressed with what you said. Would you mind leaving your telephone number with our engineer? Because I would like to call you sometime, maybe this evening, and talk to you about coming on the air and spending some more time with us. Is that something you can do?
Sure. Sounds good.
Are you interested in sharing your knowledge as an instructor on USA Prepares?
Well, I don't know if I'm qualified enough to be an instructor, but yeah, whatever I know, I'd be able to share with others. When you're talking about your equipment breaking down, one thing when it comes to agricultural equipment, one thing I've said for years is the engineers that design that what an engineer is, I should say, a definition of it. They design a piece of equipment to fail in a predetermined amount of time. Because some of the stuff that I've seen, that I worked on over the years, I mean, it was just designed flawed right from the beginning. I think it was unintentional a lot of times. So, but,
have you heard of the Citgo/Orslin 303 tractor hydraulic fluid that is substandard, that does not meet the specifications, that is mislabeled? Have you heard of that fraud?
I did hear you talking about that. Yes. Yep. Okay.
Well, an attorney came here, and I've seen the documentation. Let me tell you what, this documentation shows that the people involved in this said, well, what do we do? One guy says, well, instead of using a yellow bucket, I'm paraphrasing, where people can see the sludge in the bottom, like 1/8 of an inch of sludge,
yep.
What about black buckets?
Oh, jeez.
I'm not kidding. They knew. They knew. So what I'm saying is, you are right. We have these products that are engineered to fail at a predetermined life. They do fail at that life, and we are toast because they're getting worse.
Yep.
But please leave your number with our engineer, and I'd love to call you back. What else would you like to share in the final minute or so we have?
I know you just mentioned about your book, and you said you didn't want to take it to print because of the trolls and that out there getting a whole lot of information. And I wouldn't let that stop you, because there's those of us out here that do, would benefit from that, and they're gonna get that information one way or another. So I wouldn't let them, let that up you. I guess I just want to encourage you, like say,
okay,
to get
all
that
right.
book out.
Well, let me ask you a very quick question in the remaining seconds. Have you ever made a gasket using gasket material and a ball peen hammer? Have you ever made a custom gasket?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about that on Friday, class.
Yep.
And so, it's a trick. It's a trick, but hardly anybody knows about it. So, Brian, stay with us and make sure our engineer gets your number. Guineith Isaacs, I love broadcasting with you. I wish you were our neighbor, but I got to tell you where we're going to be moving first, so you don't move here. Thanks so much for being with us, Guineith and Brian. Brian, please hold.